Good day, good people. Relevant Thoughts blog is back. I'm your guy, Lewis to the T, and as always, I'm excited to talk to you. And on today, I'm excited to talk to you about justice and what that looks like. Today is Friday, March 4th, 2022, and I'm just going to jump right in and talk about this historic nomination of the country's first African-American woman to the Supreme Court of the United States, and that would be the nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was nominated by President Joe Biden as a candidate for the Supreme Court of the United States. I am almost certain that she will be sat on the court, that her nomination will be approved on a bipartisan manner. She has been approved on a bipartisan manner in her previous judgeships. So I don't see where that would change at this point. We know that nowadays politics does play a cruel game, but I do believe that some of those same Republicans who voted for her previously will vote for her again. Just to do a quick shout out to President Obama and his strategic approach to judgeships, even though many of them were blocked from even being reviewed his last couple years in office. I want to say maybe almost 200 were not even looked at his last 2 years in office, but she was one of the ones who did make it through before the Senate Republicans really began to oppose him on almost everything he attempted to do. But in 2010, President Obama appointed Judge Jackson to she was the vice chair of the Commission on Sentencing. And in 2013, he appointed her as district judge to the District of Columbia. So, these previous judgeships, these previous appointments really do play a major role when looking at Supreme Court nominees, particularly if they are not white males. I have to make that point. I know people get sick of hearing about race, but it's absolutely crucial that we talk about it because it's important. In almost a 200-year history of the Supreme Court of the United States, there has never been a black woman nominated. Not just appointed, not just sat on the court, but not even nominated. And so to have her here at this moment in time being, more than experienced, more than credentialed, more than ready for the role, for me, is just really exciting to look at. You can go and look her up and look at all of her background and see just how amazing she is. But what really struck me, speaking of justice, speaking of this topic of justice, is when she accepted the nomination formally with Vice President Harris and with President Biden. She spoke about how people had already began to attack her family. People had began to talk about an uncle who had been caught up in drug dealing many years ago. He was convicted. He had a life sentence for cocaine distribution, non-violent cocaine distribution, and was ultimately had his sentence commuted years later. But people had already began to run those stories when she was nominated. And what I loved about her response was she mentioned it. She acknowledged that it was a part of her family's history, but she also went on to say that she had other uncles who were veterans of the United States military, that one was not only a veteran of the military, but became the police chief in Miami, where they were born and raised at. And so I thought it was so interesting and also disheartening that she even had to do that she had to talk about the accolades of other family members in a way to minimize just what happened to an uncle that had absolutely nothing to do with who she is as a judge today. While they were running stories about his criminal activity, nobody cared to mention that she had another uncle who was a police chief in Miami, or that she had two uncles that were veterans, that her twin brother is a veteran, as well as a member of law enforcement. So when she accepted her nomination, she mentioned all of those things, and I thought it was so appropriate in such a classy way of kind of clapping back at the negativity that had already been put out towards her, not about her, but towards her. But in the same vein of talking about justice, it's such a paradoxical situation when it comes to being Black in America, because we celebrate her coming out of, Black History Month, going into Women's History Month, and I'm excited about it. But I would be remiss if I did not talk about the fact that today it was mentioned that Breonna Taylor's, the police officers involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor have not yet been charged. In fact, the only person where there was any criminal prosecution was just considered not guilty yesterday. That some of the shots that he fired, although they didn't hit her, there was over 32 shots fired based on a no-knock warrant in a home where they shouldn't have even been at. So the police went into the home of Breonna Taylor. They should not have been there in the first place. And when her boyfriend, in the mode of protection, tried to protect them, she was shot and killed, and the apartment was shot up over 32 times. Nothing has been said about the fact that they should not have been there. They should have never been there. She lost her life, and nobody, not one of those officers, will be brought to justice, or not. It hasn't been done thus far. So in the state of Kentucky, we're looking at that. We're looking at you all. We're hoping that something will happen in regard to justice, but we can't be too hopeful because history has proven that this sort of case, when it comes to the police and no-knock warrants and the death of African-American people, particularly in this case, Breonna Taylor being a young African-American woman, justice is not served. So today we talk about the appointment of, the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court of the United States, but we also mourn the loss of Breonna Taylor, and we can't let that go unanalyzed. We have to talk about that. We have to put that out there. We have to let people know that we celebrate, but we still seek justice. And so that's all I wanted to share today. I hope you guys will share back with me. I love your comments and your sharing of my posts, and I'll be back with you again soon. This has been a Relevant Thoughts blog. You'll be able to see this on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and just a little bit on Twitter because, hey, that's their rule. See you guys again soon.